To this now, as she delivered her latest findings on municipalities, Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke says political instability in some metros has had a direct impact on poor financial performance. At the same time, we've seen the mayoral chain changing hands again in the City of Joburg, while the motion of no confidence against Tshwane Mayor Cilliers Brink is not going ahead, at least for now. But what impact does all of this have on service delivery? Let's speak to Melvin Phala, Engagement Manager at DSO Consulting Group. Thank you so much for your time. Good evening to you, sir. The Auditor General saying that the political instability that plagues many metros has had a direct impact on their poor financial performance. Let's talk about what this means then for service delivery.
Good evening, Bongiwe, and to your viewers, and thank you for the opportunity. And just to the age's point, indeed, the change in the political instability does have a direct impact in terms of the service delivery. This change obviously results in negatively affecting the strategic planning for the municipalities, as well as the diverted focus where you have new leadership in these metros. Then the priorities are shifted. There's no continuity whatsoever, and this does affect ultimately the service delivery on the ground.
So is it then not the case? Because I'm listening to what you're saying, and in some cases when you speak to some of those in council, they say to you, we are but one arm. There are employees who are there on a daily basis who ensure that these programs do continue. So it's not all up to us. So it certainly doesn't sound that notion may necessarily be the actual case of what happens in some of these municipalities.
I suppose you are right, but at the end of the day, what needs to happen is to strengthen the institutional frameworks of these metros as well as the municipalities. And here we're talking about codifying the policies as well as the procedures such that irrespective of who comes into the position of leadership, the programs that are there to deliver services to the citizenry are implemented irrespective of the change of leadership. And as such, that's the only way where we can ensure that whether there's change in leadership and having a strong and institutionalized framework, that then the service delivery does not stop.
Is there a workaround at all where we're seeing this instability? And I'm using the city of Johannesburg, for example. You know, the mayoral chain consistently changing hands, and residents are being told, no, service delivery is going to be prioritized. But in your reading of what has been happening, is there a workaround that maybe can be put in place to ensure that even if power changes hands, some of these programs continue, possibly?
Yeah, Bongiwe, certainly, as I mentioned earlier, that I think what is key, besides the institutionalizing of the frameworks within the municipalities, but also professionalizing, we were saying, irrespective of who's the leader from a political perspective, the programs that have been approved through the IDP are going to go ahead. And this speaks to, as I mentioned, the professionalizing. Then you have the technocrats that will still be able to implement the programs to ensure that service delivery is not hindered at all.
So sometimes we hear that skills are the issue, and you talk about professionalization, for example. In other instances, you'll hear some of those who are in these municipalities saying that it's difficult to recruit the right kind of skills because in some of these areas, the money is not good, or they simply are in areas where they are not desirable. But at the same time, you're hearing of the Auditor General who talks about consultants who are coming in to do the very work that some of these particular municipal employees must do. So is there an appetite in your reading of what has been going on over the years to professionalize the space? Because it does seem like politics also is at play there.
No, absolutely. And as I mentioned, that from a professionalizing perspective, that is the message not only to the leadership from a political perspective, but bringing on board the communities. I think what then needs to happen is we need to ensure that the only way we can have solid delivery, service delivery, is to have the professionals that run these metros as well as local municipalities. So there is a way. It is a long road, but at the end of the day, what is important is to show the benefits. I think when you look at what the AG, I think the findings that we've got one metro that has a clean audit. One needs to take a step back and look at what is it that we can replicate from this particular metro that has done so well, and roll this out across the other metros. And I'm quite certain that one of the key elements will be that of having people that have an understanding and wanting to deliver service to the citizens from that perspective, who are obviously the qualified technocrats to drive service delivery across all the municipalities.
And it can even help. And it can even help with, for example, what she raises as a concern of record keeping, of, you know, when it comes to finances, knowing where everything is, knowing who owes you, and to be able to make sure that you're collecting. And I suppose when we professionalize, it also helps with what we've all been crying about, which is the issue of crumbling infrastructure as well.
Absolutely. I think when we look at our local municipalities, and I keep on repeating the professionalism, when you compare to the private sector, you see that obviously the private sector are able to deliver the services or that which they are mandated to do. And as such, that can only happen when we've got the right skills, obviously the right leadership, and also the stability from the top in terms of the MMs as well as the CEs within the public sector. So that combination will certainly go a long way to try and get over the current challenges that the municipalities are facing. But that should not just reside at the top. This must be cascaded down all the way to the guys on the ground, or you say the boots on the boots on the ground, right?
Yeah. And to what extent, though, when, for example, there's political instability like you've just described now, and a lack of professionalization, to what extent does community engagement also suffer? Because this is another critical layer when it comes to service delivery.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure I don't have to mention names, but when we're not running our institutions professionally, then our citizens that put us in those positions are ultimately suffering. I think what's also key and important is to have a continuous engagement with our communities, such that they know that it wasn't just, you know, immediately after we come after elections, then we don't engage them any further. I think it's important, even within these municipalities as well as the metros, that there's continuous engagement with the citizens, and that must be a top priority for all metros and municipalities, because that's our mandate, to deliver services to our people. When we look at the private sector, they always talk about the client being the customer being the king. From the public sector, it is the citizens who are the kings.
Melvin, thank you so much for your time this evening. Sure. As you say, the customer is king, but let's see then if we will see some stability going forward. But appreciate your insights this evening. That was Melvin Phala, Engagement Manager at DSO Consulting Group.